You keep choosing the same person, different face, different name, same destruction, and the terrifying part is that you knew from the first conversation, something in your body, not your mind, your body, sent a signal, a tightening in the chest, a pull that felt like gravity, an excitement that was indistinguishable from danger, and you chose them anyway, not because you were stupid, not because you were weak, not because you did not know better, but because something inside you, something ancient, something that lives beneath your conscious awareness, recognized them. Not as a threat, as a mirror. Carl Jung spent 40 years trying to explain why the most psychologically aware people on Earth keep walking into the same fire, he called what they were walking toward, the shadow. And once you understand what the shadow actually is, you will never look at your own patterns the same way again. Stay with me, because this changes everything. This is Elenara, where logic meets the soul. If nobody has ever explained your own psychology to you in a way that actually made sense, you are exactly where you need to be. Subscribe and hit the bell. Before we go further, drop this in the comments right now. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt drawn to something or someone that you already knew was going to hurt you? Not a maybe, a new. Just say yes, I want to. See how many of us have been here. Here's what most people get wrong about the shadow. They think it is evil. They think Jung was describing the part of you that is cruel, selfish, violent, the part you should be ashamed of. That is not what it is. The shadow is simply the part of you that you decided was unacceptable. When you were young, very young, before you had language for any of this, you learned something about the world. You learned which parts of you were welcome and which parts needed to disappear. Maybe you learned that anger was dangerous, so you buried it. Maybe you learned that ambition was arrogant, so you hid it. Maybe you learned that desire was shameful, so you denied it. Maybe you learned that your own needs were too much, so you pretended they did not exist. And every part of you that you buried, every quality you rejected, every impulse you suppressed, went somewhere. It did not die. It went into the shadow. And the shadow, according to Jung, does not sit quietly. It does not accept its exile. It finds other ways to express itself, through your dreams, through your emotional reactions that seem disproportionate, through the people you are inexplicably drawn to, because here is the rule that governs the shadow: what you refuse to own inside yourself. You will encounter outside yourself. The parts of you that you will not acknowledge, you will find in the people who enter your life, and you will feel something toward them, something you cannot explain rationally, something that feels like recognition, because it is. Let's talk about what is actually happening when you feel that pull, that electric, irrational, slightly dangerous pull towards someone who is clearly not good for you. Most people call it chemistry. Jung would call it projection. When you meet someone who embodies a quality that lives in your shadow, a quality you buried because the world told you it was unacceptable, something extraordinary happens in your psychology. You project that quality onto them. You see in them what you cannot see in yourself. And because the shadow contains everything you have spent your entire life suppressing, it is enormous. It is concentrated. It is charged. So the projection feels enormous, concentrated, charged. It feels like love at first sight. It feels like this person was made for you. It feels like you have known them your entire life. Because in a sense, you have been carrying them all along in the dark. Now here is where this becomes uncomfortable. The people who trigger your shadow are not random. The person who pulls your rage is showing you your buried anger. The person who triggers your deepest jealousy is showing you your suppressed desire. The person whose confidence you find both magnetic and infuriating is showing you the part of you that you were told was too much. The narcissist who made you feel simultaneously chosen and worthless was activating the part of you that believes, somewhere beneath the conscious mind, that love and pain are the same thing. Because once, a very long time ago, they were. This is why attraction is never random. It is always a message from the unconscious. The question is not why you were attracted to them. The question is, what were they showing you about yourself? Tell me in the comments. Think about the most destructive relationship you have ever been in, not to revisit the pain, but to ask one question. What quality did that person have that you either desperately wanted or were told you should never have? Think carefully. This is the most important question in this entire video. Now, let's make this specific, because this is where Jung's theory stops being abstract and starts being the most precise description of your actual life you have ever heard. The person who was everything your family told you not to be. The rebel, the unpredictable one, the one who lived by their own rules. They did not attract you despite those qualities. They attracted you because of them, because inside you, buried under years of being told to be safe, obedient, reasonable, predictable, was a version of you that wanted to be exactly those things. And when you met someone who was living what you had suppressed, it felt like freedom. It felt like coming home. It felt like, finally, someone who understands. But here is the tragedy of shadow attraction. You were not drawn to the person. You were drawn to the part of yourself they were reflecting back at you. And when the relationship began to deteriorate, when the excitement turned to anxiety, when the chemistry turned to chaos, you stayed not because you were addicted to them, but because leaving felt like losing that part of yourself again, the part you had been missing for so long, the part that felt finally alive. This is why leaving a toxic relationship feels like grief, not just for the person, but for the version of yourself you believed they gave you access to. And here is the most important thing Jung ever said about this. The only way to stop projecting the shadow onto others is to integrate it, not destroy it, not suppress it further, not be ashamed of it. Integrate it. Claim the anger as yours. It is information, not a weapon. Claim the ambition as yours. It is direction, not arrogance. Claim the desire as yours. It is aliveness, not destruction. The moment you own what lives in your shadow, you stop needing someone else to carry it for you. Shadow work is one of the most misused terms in modern psychology. It has been reduced to journaling prompts and aesthetic Instagram posts. And what Jung actually described was nothing like that. Real shadow work is confrontational. It requires you to sit with the parts of yourself that make you uncomfortable, not to judge them, not to perform healing about them, but to look at them directly, with the same honesty you would apply to evidence in a courtroom. Here is what it actually looks like in practice. The next time someone triggers a disproportionate reaction in you, rage that is bigger than the situation warrants, jealousy that feels physical, disgust that seems to come from nowhere, do not ask, why are they doing this to me? Ask, what quality in them am I refusing to acknowledge in myself? The colleague who infuriates you with their confidence? Do you have an unexpressed desire to take up more space? The person whose freedom makes you simultaneously envious and judgmental? Have you been telling yourself that what they have is irresponsible because it is something you want but are afraid to pursue? The partner who expressed anger openly while you had been trained since childhood that anger was dangerous was part of the attraction that they did what you had never allowed yourself to do. This is not comfortable work. It requires a level of radical honesty that most people are never willing to bring to themselves. But here is what it gives you. It gives you back everything you gave away, every quality you buried, every impulse you suppressed, every part of you that went into the shadow to survive a world that told you it was too much, comes home. And a person who has integrated their shadow is one of the most psychologically complete and genuinely dangerous people you will ever meet. Not dangerous to others, dangerous to every system, every relationship, every dynamic that was built on the assumption that they could be controlled through what they lacked, because they lack nothing anymore. Drop this in the comments, and I want the honest answer. What quality do you most harshly judge in other people? Because according to Jung, that is the clearest possible window into what lives in your shadow, the thing you cannot stand in others is almost always the thing you cannot face in yourself. Tell me what it is. You do not have to explain it, just name it. When you begin to integrate your shadow, something shifts that you cannot entirely explain. The people who used to trigger you stop triggering you, not because they changed, they did not, but because the hook they used to catch you on, the quality they embodied that your shadow was desperately seeking, is no longer missing from you. You carry it yourself now. The relationships that used to feel magnetic feel ordinary. The patterns that used to repeat stop repeating, not because you tried harder, not because you set better boundaries, not because you chose more carefully, but because you are no longer projecting. And this is the most important thing to understand about the shadow. It is not your enemy. It was never your enemy. It is the most authentic version of you that exists, the version that was buried, not because it was wrong, but because the world was not ready for it. And neither were you. The work, the real work, is not healing. It is not becoming someone new. It is becoming more completely, more honestly, more entirely yourself. The shadow is not the darkness in you. It is the light you were told to put out. And the day you stop carrying it in secret and start carrying it openly, everything changes. Not just who you attract, but who you are. Tonight, write down 3 qualities you most strongly judge in other people. Then ask, where in my own life am I refusing to express these qualities? Or where am I expressing them in ways I am ashamed of? You do not have to share this with anyone. This is between you and the part of yourself that has been waiting, very patiently, to come home. You were never broken. You were never too much. You were never the chaos that some people needed you to believe you were. You were a complete person who learned, very young, that completeness was dangerous. So you split yourself in half, gave the world the version they could handle, and locked the rest away. The shadow is simply the rest of you, and it has been knocking on the door. Every time you were drawn to something you knew would hurt you, every time you reacted in a way that surprised even you, every time you looked at someone else and felt that electric, irrational unrecognition, it was not a warning, it was an invitation. Now, 3 things before you go. Want to drop in the comments. What did you realize about your own shadow today? Even one word. To share this with someone who keeps repeating the same relationship pattern and cannot understand why. This video might be the thing that finally breaks it. 3. Subscribe to Elenara. Next week we go to the wounded healer archetype, why empaths become targets, and what to do about it. You are not your patterns. You are the awareness that can finally see them